It's a privilege to be here this morning, and we've already heard so much from all of them. One of the things that, actually the crisis in science education is not an Indian scenario. It is a global scenario. Everywhere, all over the world, people are trying to make children like something that they've been hating all their lives. So the task that we have here is to do really with the learner. When I say learner, I think all of us are learners at any point in time in life. And to understand a learner is the most critical thing and central to education per se, and of course to science education. And if you really look at a learner is someone who wants to have a personal experience. They want to have meaning and purpose in everything they do. If there is no meaning, there is no learning. So education, science education has to be very, very personalized. And typically if you look at children, the way they learn is they like to explore, they like to question, they like to reflect, they like to discover. That is exactly what the nature of science is. So they are not very far from what we are talking about. It's just that those things are not really made available to them in a typical classroom. And when I say personal, it's also something that a child does in a classroom should have meaning in the child's life. So there should be a continuity in the learning experience from the classroom to the context of the home or outside, or, and that's exactly what is very often missing. Children are asked to come to sit in a class and they're taught concepts which goes over their head and they just walk out. And some of the things that I hear from students who come to me is, we hate science, like what Dr. Chattopadhyay shared this morning. They use words like hate, fear, so a whole lot of negative emotions or feelings is what you really see in a child, typically a middle school and high school child. So the task that we really have here is replacing such strong emotions with maybe fear maybe fear of exams, or fear of not being able to perform well, fear of grades, fear of even the teacher sometimes, all these negative emotions. You have to replace faith with probably fear with probably faith in what they're doing, faith in the people that they're working with, faith in a system, faith in the teacher who's teaching them. So it's a whole lot of that. And then replace hate with fear. If you typically ask a young person today, one of the words that they really love to use is, it's awesome. When they say it's awesome, then you know that it's really touched their lives. Okay? So I think we need to understand that one of the ways to de-stress children, students, especially in a science education scenario, is to understand that the learner needs to find meaning, purpose, and experience should be very, very, it's usually identity related. Learning is identity related. If you ask a child, can you describe what you just learned in class today? And very often it will be a narrative of himself. He was going to tell you what it did to him as a person. Unless learning has this thing of, what does it mean to me as a person? That learning is not going to stay. And creativity is another thing. I think it's completely overlooked. Many people think that children don't have creativity, a huge amount of play. And there's extraordinary evidence to show that children are creative. And creativity, and talents are something like natural resources. You never see it on the surface. You have to go really deep into a child, give the child the kind of right incentive, the right opportunity, before you can surface some of these things. And today I feel, creativity to education is the same as literacy. If you're talking about literacy for education, we should be talking about creativity on the same path. So that will help a child to not feel so stressed, not feel so upset about the fact that he's sitting in a class. These are some of the things that you need to, there are so many other things we can look at, but predominantly I would, look at a child and see what are his socio-emotional factors that are attached to his learning. Because the way we think, the way we interpret things, the way we experience things is all related to a lot of socio-emotional factors. And that is very, very critical to learning, especially through science, education and science.
If you can just share with the audience, as a parent, and given that you yourself have gone through the science stream and the technical stream, what are some of the steps that you can actually inculcate within the family to foster or further nurture science amongst our children? If you can just share some tips on that.
That we look at a platform that science is for materialistic pursuits. Science is for your roti kapda makan purpose. In a Maslowian triangle, we never look at science as something that can create self-esteem. You can fulfill your self-actualization through science. So we tell our children, science is not for just getting a job. The scientific temperament and scientific mindset will take you long in life in balancing every aspect of your life. Second thing I tell myself is that science is not that it stops after you get into second year of engineering. You have done your Schrodinger equation, and that's it. After that, no more science. No. Science is something that can, science is something that you need to pursue much beyond your getting a job. We need to tell children that science is just not for getting the job and result done. Third thing I've noticed is that science is not necessarily in English. The power of science in your native language, especially if you look at the different strata of the society, somehow the availability of science in different languages is not very, I'll put that, adequate. Okay? So as a family person, while encouraging my children for science, I tell them that science is just not for career. Science is just not for, science does not stop after some age. So some of the thoughts I share with my children. And I would look at 3-4 areas in which science education can be improved so that the takeaway from that science education reflects during the workplace better. First thing is the willingness to experiment. I think the willingness to experiment is strongly based on how as a child you yourself have worked around with things. If you don't get that mindset in the beginning, you will never get it later. Because we develop the concept of learning from books, and once we come into workplace, we look at delivering to the specifications. So there's a strong correlation between how you have learned and how you behave or work at the workplace. So the ability to experiment, think new will not come unless we have started from the childhood, ingraining a process of experimenting and learning.
Sure.
And second is that doing something beyond education in school, we don't do it or we don't encourage it much. Okay? Even now, for example, if my daughter in RV College, she says there's an inter-college dance competition, I'll frown at it. If she says there's an inter-college exhibition for a tech fest where you need to present a paper, wow, you must go and do it. Okay? Now the same mindset comes when the engineers in our workplace. If an engineer in our system says, I want to create an application which will tell the story of, which will enable a kid to learn periodic table better. I'll just create a simple sporty application which will tell, okay, here is a sodium molecule, here is a chlorine molecule, they integrate, how they add and become sodium chloride. If they want to create such an application and then give it off to students, and this can be a good CSR activity, I might say, oh, would it get you a patent? No, it won't get you a patent. So, so this we are all conditioned with this mindset, which is also reflecting in our workplace. And because of this, the competitiveness of India in establishing a good innovative product line is also suffering. I think it's all starts from the way we got nurtured. So
sure.
Some 2 areas I can highlight.
Thanks.
What I feel is anything and everything that we do, if it's a little live, you tend to do it a little better. Not because I'm into medical electronics and dealing with MR and CT and things like that. It so happens that every conference we go, every discussions that we go, the time limit is 20 minutes, but obviously my presentation on fMRI extends for 40-45 minutes because there's curiosity. I mean, I am talking about the curiousness to know what is within us is very important. You relate all aspects of science and maths to the day-to-day life. If I'm talking about the way the flow patterns of water, instead of water you talk about blood. You say this is how blood flows. This is how the blood flow patterns change because of variations in the size of the veins, variation in the size of the arteries. Then the students are a little more curious. They're thinking, fine, he or she is talking about something that is within me. It's better that you relate every aspect, like what the professor talked about this previously about. It's so very nice to look at a potato being representing a pendulum than the actual pendulum, which is not very live. This is so live. I've been seeing this day in and day out, so it's more interesting. And as Sir also mentioned that it should be in your native language, then it's more applicable. Like why I talk Kannada at home. Now, the way I talk about multiples is a little different from what is taught in school. They always say if maths and science is taught in native, it's very well absorbed. It lasts longer. My experience with being maths taught in Kannada probably will take me, I mean, I still remember the 20th tables, 19 also. Talk to my kid and then they need a calculator or mom's mobile, I say, do they give you during the examination? They say, it's okay. Let me finish it off fast now. In examination, I can use a rough word. But then we are providing the easy ways of finding solution, which was not true with us. We were made to sit down and write 25 steps before I got a four numerals by four numerals answer. But then they just take few seconds. And then we're not able to stop them. We are not supposed to stop them to look at the latest innovations. I can't stop them and say, don't look at the calculator. I'm supposed to say how to manage between actual learning without the calculator and with the calculator. And something live you talk about. And I mean, I was just talking to my son the other day. I was in the kitchen doing something. You put the flour inside and the water is boiling. And then there's a pattern that is being seen, above the flow of water is a little different. It doesn't rotate, it moves inside. Now I asked him, I was not very sure. I was more concentrating on how much flour I'm supposed to put and how I'm supposed to manage it so that it comes out well, that's my end target. And then my kid, who is in 8th standard, he was standing beside me and said, Mom, do you know why it's pouring in like that instead of rotating? There's an obstruction and then there's pouring. He was talking to me about conduction, convection, and why it's happening. And there was a strong discussion between the two of them. The elder one said, there's more heat at the center. The younger said, there's more heat at the surrounding. They started off the discussion. I was not very keen, but then after I got a call from Smita saying, you're supposed to talk about science with kids, then I said, fine. Yesterday I started asking them at 11 o'clock in the night, why do you think the two of them vary? And they had beautiful answers to tell me, and my younger one also, the elder one also, he thinks he should talk a little beyond the younger. He's in 8th, and this fellow cannot be talking about the floor and the water. He said, fine, everybody knows it's because of convection, and so it's getting inner because it's less heated at the center, and things like that. And then he said, do you know when you throw a stone, how far it goes depends on at what angle you throw. And I asked him, does it really matter? He said, yes. But then we don't talk about that in a school, saying the discus or the shot put throw is a little different because of the angle at which you throw. He said, the range is maximum when it is thrown at an angle of 45 degrees. The younger one had a slightly weird look, saying, this fellow is making up stories. Then he pulls out a paper and writes an equation for R, which is V square by G, and he says sine 2 theta, and it says theta, when it's 45, 2 theta is 90 degrees, which is 1, so it's maximum. The velocity is maximum and the gravity, it's less. So 45 degrees it will take a longer, which I really didn't know. I mean, I was more concentrating on my fMRIs, my CTs and MRs, and I wanted to thank him. I said, I'll do that, I'll mention that tomorrow and then get back to him saying, thank you for that. He has given me a chit saying, you don't look at the whole chit and tell them, you should know what you're saying. And he says, and when if you're probably reading it out, I've written something else at the below. Don't read that down. I mean, he thinks I'm going to read the whole thing. Moths are a little, not very intelligent. They're smart, not very intelligent. Whether I do a doctorate, a postdoctorate, I still would end up talking to my kid who's going to say, you know this? A small thing. He says, you really know this? My friends were happy that you knew this, but I went and told them. So it's okay. I mean, but then the interaction is wonderful when you talk about, he was happy that I talked to him about throwing a stone or boiling of water, and he said, do you know the hanger that we use at home? They have specific angles. It's 30, 30 and 120. It's fixed. The elder knew, the younger didn't know. But the younger one, he held on to saying, you didn't know about the water circulation thing. They're very happy. So make it live. Make it live. Live is always better. And teach beyond what is there in the curriculum. That's what I've learned. Because these kids, when my kid was in 5th standard, he gets a project, he says, give me the password and I know how to do the project. I just have to Google it. As Madam said, Googling is going to give you every answer. Now, what am I teaching in college? The whole textbook that I'm teaching is available on Google. You think the kids can't read? They can read perfectly well beyond what I'm trying to teach in class. So what am I trying to do? I'm going to relate every aspect of my data structures or the if-then-else statement to something that is happening in their life. I see, if you have an Android phone, how many if-then-else would be there? I don't teach them. Do if-then-else for so many things. My kid says, he is learning some programming language. So he says, Ma, if this phone has the touch screen, I touch a particular location and then there's an application popping up, then there should be an if statement which says, if it is touched here. If it is straight, it's touched here. If it is turned, then it should be touched somewhere else. There should be sensor, and there's so many ifs. He relates his Visual Basic to the Android phone. That's so perfect, he'll understand the programming language so well, just because he's trying it out on the Android phone. So let's not stop our kids from the Nintendos, the PSPs, the Androids. You are only training a better surgeon because your Nintendos and Androids are teaching them best hand and brain, coordination. That's what a surgeon needs. So I am looking at a surgeon who is perfectly trying to do a temple run, perfectly doing it. The coordination is the best. That's what we want in a surgeon. So you are looking at the budding surgeon when it's a Nintendo. I mean, I surely agree. You need to give 1 or 2 shoutings at the end of 2 hours of Nintendo continuous. But then don't stop the kid. Don't stop the kid. I would love to see my son bake a cake along with learning science. It's wonderful. So let them do everything. As Sir said, let's not frown at them when they say, I like to dance. And let's not smile too widely when they say, I'm going there to present a paper. But both of them are important. But then how do we balance the two is tough because I will need a 9.6 grade to put my son into BMS College of Engineering. There's no other go. He's intelligent. Why do I want him in BMS? Why not in any other college? Because I know my kid is intelligent, there's more exposure there. The peer community is good. So I want to put him there. So we'll think of ways that we can put them into a better college, better environment, not stop them from using the Nintendos and my mobile phone when I desperately need, I don't have the charge in it. because it's all over between the two of them. But then it's still okay. We manage, we are trying to balance the two worlds together. So it's better that we let them do it and also put some pressure on study time. But then it cannot be study all the time. I'm happy he got a 9.2, but then I'll still try to push him a little more to get him into BMS or RVC, as Sir said. So let's do it, but then put them on the live wire. It's more stimulating. It's more stimulating and they'll learn it in a better way. That's what I feel.